So again, I relied on the generosity of the Star Trek community to help me with the shipping costs. And at some point, it was, again, like 50 to 100 different packages that I've sent out to fans, whether it's a small action figure or when you did the campaign for Esther's Echo, I donated, I don't know, 5 or 7 boxes of stuff for the giveaway. And it is the stories that I heard back from that made me realize how privileged I am in having all this access and being able to come to this convention every year, and that's not an experience people get. I say everyone should do it once, but some people never will be able to, and that's why it's so important that we take the community that we built here and find a way to reach out and to at least share that love, share that camaraderie, and build that connection, because it's that connection that can end up helping us save one another and helping us guide and lead the way toward becoming catalysts of change and doing the work that we need to do to get to the future that Roddenberry has shown us that we so gladly want to achieve.
I'll share a little bit. Some of you might have heard, I told this story last year about the organization that I started, but I have some updates from something exciting that happened, so I want to be able to share it with all of you. So for me, like, I grew up in northwestern Ontario, small town called Thunder Bay, and I grew up watching Star Trek, and I just felt this incredible, like, burden of responsibility from the inspiration that came from the show, because I watched it and I was like, wow, this future is amazing. Like, what do I do with this inspiration? I feel like I should do something with it. And people will often hear the stories of people going like, well, I watched Star Trek and so I went into the film industry. And I didn't see any route into film from where I was in Thunder Bay. That just didn't seem like the route I could take. And I was really bad at drawing, and I couldn't do graphic design or anything like that. I had stick figures. And then the other was, well, I went into sciences, and I didn't see myself becoming an engineer. If I had, there would be so many casualties. It would just be a terrible idea. I was really bad at math. No one wanted to be building a bridge. But what I could see is I was like, well, maybe, what if I try to do work in the present, and this seemed like the third option, to make the Federation like today, and how would I do that? So I started looking at programs to study in school, and one of them was international development, and I figured, well, I can't explore up, maybe I can explore out. And this program sent me overseas, and then all of a sudden, this kid from Thunder Bay, Ontario, is living in Sierra Leone in West Africa. And I was so out of my depth. And I thought about myself growing up and what my childhood was, and it was flipping through like the Star Trek technical manual and watching Star Trek on my little 14-inch TV in my room. And then I got to a place, Sierra Leone had gone through a 10-year civil conflict, and it only ended 2 years before I got there. And it was a war-torn country, and I'm meeting kids, a lot of them young women, girls, who are most impacted by poverty and war. And these are kids that grew up not flipping through tech manual journals. They were being taught to assemble AK-47s and were used as child soldiers. And I was so out of my depth. I felt completely overwhelmed. Like, what can I do in this place? And there's a little bit of prime directive thinking here that I started thinking about when I was there too. I was like, also, what right do I have to interfere here? Like, what can I do? And the only reason I had been sent there was because I was on behalf of the university and I had access to the university's purse and I was studying this course. But I really had no right to be there. But I met this incredible woman. Her name was Esther Kenyu. She was a local woman who had started her own school for vulnerable women and girls in the middle of that war. So that war was happening. She started that school on her own. It was a way to keep people in school. And she ran it all the way through the war, and then when the war was ended, her school was picked by the government to help demobilize young kids and find them back into society again. And I realized that the amount of money that had been spent to put me, one foreign aid worker, Star Trek nerd in West Africa for a year, would have graduated an entire class of 50 of the women from her school. So I was like, what's the point of this? Like, that doesn't make any sense. So when I got back home, we started sending donations over, and then in 2012, we founded an organization called Esther's Echo, because we were literally echoing Esther's work in the world. And fast forward a couple years later, I started thinking, well, this is one community that really cares about this kind of stuff. And I've been a Star Trek nerd my whole life. What if I was able to put the two communities together? and what if we could do something out of that? And I had this idea brewing for a little while, and we were talking with a few of the communities that are already starting to think around something like this, and it became this thing called Trektivism. But I wanted something more like acute for Esther in particular. And so I had the pleasure at that time, I knew Amy Imhoff, who's over here in the front row, and Amy was like, hey, you know what? Because Amy was working second-hand person for, or right-hand person for Kate Mulgrew. And she had said, you know, Kate cares about these causes, and I think if we could get Kate involved, we could put out an all-call to the celebrities, but also the fandom, and maybe we could do something. So actually, I have some, like, sort of the outcome of what this was, because we just had started the fundraiser last year, so I've got some images here, so I think we can bring those up. Okay, cool. So here's a picture, that's Esther and I. This is from about 8 or 9 years ago. This is when Esther was actually able to come to Canada, so she came to British Columbia, where I'm stationed now, and was hanging out with me in Canada, did a couple of speeches around universities and stuff there. Here's the first tweet that went out from Kate Mulgrew. And then, of course, there were follow-ups from that tweet. I mean, check out this one. Activate the EEH, the Esther's Echo hologram. I mean, come on! As a Star Trek fan, I was taking the train to work that day, and all of a sudden I flipped my phone open, and I'm like seeing these tweets come through, and I'm like, oh my God, like crying. This is amazing. Like, as a Star Trek fan, this is incredible. But it didn't stop there. Look at, there's like, we got Dan and Kevin Hegman, Jonathan Frakes, Robert Duncan McNeil, Brent Spiner, Nana Visitor. So like all these tweets started coming out. And so for me as a Star Trek fan, this was like, it was like we formed an actual away team and for Esther overseas. And it's like we were all in it together. And many of you donated and it made a big deal. And John was kind enough to, on stage last year, publicly declare that he'd make a $1,000 donation to the organization, which he did.
All right, I'll do it again.
No. Well, yes! John, we are recording this too, so I got it on tape. So thank you.
I brought my checkbook.
Thank you. And in your America money, that works out to like $5,000 Canadian, so I really appreciate it. So anyways, last month, so this was a year ago, but last month, the school season that you all contributed to graduated. So we put another 60 women through school, and they sent me some footage and stuff, so I thought I'd show you footage of the graduation ceremony. So here it is. Footage that they sent us because the local news did a piece on it too. And
my name is Esther Fatukaru, National Coordinator for Women in Action Development Project. On behalf of myself, the staff, and the students of Women in Action, we want to say a big thank you to Esther Zeko, the donors, more especially Star Trek, and the entire membership and the community. We want to say thank you to you all for your support in opening the doors of Women in Action, giving the young women opportunity to become educated and be self-reliant. We want to say a big thank you.
On behalf of Women
the
in
students
Action
from overseas,
I say thanks to all donors, especially Star Trek community, who supported us for the 2022 and 2023 academic year. We say a big thank you to you all.
Thank you, Star Trek.
Isn't that amazing? Esther contacted me with the students and she was like, hey, we want to thank this Star Trek community. And then she's like, first of all, what's Star Trek? And I was like, okay, listen. And she was like, okay, it's cool, I kind of get it. If they want to donate, that's awesome. And then secondly, she's like, also, this is by text. And then secondly, she was like, how do I pronounce Star Trek? I want to make sure that we get that right in the videos. which was pretty amazing. So we all did that together, and of course, a huge thanks to Amy, because without her, that wouldn't have happened. So thank you, Amy, so much. And by the way, if you need a social media campaign run or like a convention thrown together last minute, talk to Amy, because Amy is one of the most incredible connecting people I have ever met. So I've seen her whip together miracles in a very short period of time. So, so thank you all who donated. So basically, like these are the things that we're working on, but we wanted to make this a bigger part of our community as much as we can and create more like discourse and dialogue around it, because we want more of this kind of stuff to happen, both at the fan level, the celebrity level, or the crossover where the animated characters become real in the show and you're doing like both at the same time. So what we're trying to do, and this is the exciting new thing we want to talk about, is we're starting a podcast, and it's called Federation of Changemakers. Heather and I are going to be hosting the podcast. And what we want to do is, at least we're hoping to start a monthly basis, right?
Yes.
Is to share stories, both at the celebrity level, but also in the fan community about stuff that you're doing, so that this dialogue continues not just at conventions, but between the conventions as well. So we thought, since we're all here, if you're in the audience and you got something going on right now that you want to share, that we could share your story, both now but also online and stuff, come on up and tell us. Also, questions, take questions and stuff down. Yeah, is there a microphone? Yeah, come on up. Yeah.
He's popping out.
There's one parked out there for stuff, yeah.
You got it.
You got
You got
it.
it. Woo!
Oh, thanks. What's up, y'all? We're P-Park! I have probably talked to some of you this weekend. We are the Ponfar Action Response Team. It started as a joke, and then...
This is P-Fart, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
P-Fart, yeah.
Seen your shirts.
And then my lovely girlfriend here, who started the whole thing, was like, what if we got some safe sex kits from a local charity and we actually passed them on? And oh, no.
Let's see if we can, here, I'll come down there, because that microphone, I think, is a bit scratchy.
Yeah, I know.
There you go.
Mics make me nervous. Okay, hi. Okay, cool. Oh, yay. Yeah, I'm so much better on one-on-one. Yeah. Anyways, yeah, so we got some kits from a local charity, the Center. They're wonderful. We actually super miscalculated. We only asked for 100. We gave them all out Thursday night. We were silly. So over the last 3 days, we actually gave out 400 Ponfar preparedness kits. So, thank you guys. That's amazing. Thank you for being so enthusiastic about it. We were caught off guard by how well it went, and we very much want to make it a real thing. We want to spread out into other conventions. We want to get more volunteers. I wanted to ask you for advice later on how to do that. Yeah, cool. So yeah, I just wanted to be like, hey, what's up? We're P-Fart. We are out of kits. Sorry. But yeah, that's all.
Awesome, thank you so much. Okay, P-Fart, where do we find you in the meantime? Okay, and the website is?
We're on Facebook,
Okay,
Twitter, Instagram.
Okay, at Ponfar Team.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Ponfar Action Response Team. Also, live long and get it on.
Woo!
Hey, Matthew.
Yes.
I just wanted to say thank you very quickly for doing that, because that again is an example of fans taking action and making something happen. And anybody can do that, anyone in the room. And I think that's the point of you just need to take one step. And I know with the podcast, we're going to work on amplifying the organizations that you can then know where to reach out to. We talked about this question, a lot of people want to help and they don't know where to start. So through the podcast and the webpage, which is trektivism.org, I believe.
Yes, that's where you go to. By the way, trektivism.org. It's sort of a landing page for now, but we're going to have more stuff on there.
Yes. that will take you there, and then over time we will be able to get you in touch with these different organizations, so that all you need is a desire to help, and hopefully the right organization, the right idea will come along to get you started and taking action.
Thanks. All right. Go ahead. Yeah, Brad.
So my name's Brad. My road through Trektivism is through type 1 diabetes advocacy work.
Cool.
Working with Noah. My wife is also a type 1
okay.
diabetic. So trying to get insulin into the hands of people that need it the most, because it's obviously something they need to live. And I just wanted to ask you, does the diversity of the community allow more types of advocacy work over there? It's not just centered around one area. We get the opportunity to kind of celebrate many different, charities and advocacy works. Is that, do you see that as a positive?
Yeah, I think but part of the reason why we're keep trying to do these panels is to just map out the diversity of stuff that is going on out there. Because John made a good point last year, is that we were talking about trying to encourage more of this work, but a lot of it's already being done, but we may not necessarily all be aware of it. So we want to know about like the films initiatives or the organizations that are local to the conventions or other things that other people are spearheading and do. It may not even be conventions, it might be like individual work like within your role. Like, I'm working on Esther's Echo, but it's not my main life job, but Efaon's out there like kicking butt as a lawyer all day every day. That's like what he does. So wanting to hear those stories and stuff like that too. Noah was on the very first panel, Trektivism panel in Mission Chicago, talking about, and actually I spoke to him on Esther's behalf because Esther suffers from diabetes. So like that's like what connection point we're trying to make, because her access to insulin is like basically almost nil.
May I say something real quick?
Yeah, please.
And I think you asked me earlier how I came to being a lawyer, but I want to tie it into Trek a little bit. I mean, I grew up here in Las Vegas. I grew up in North Las Vegas. I grew up in Section 8 welfare housing. My mom and I ate once a day. It was tough, but I logged into Star Trek every day, and I saw a world where there was hope, but there was also power for the powerless. And I think when we talk about power, it's not this aggro, aggressive concept in my mind. Power is just access and having a voice and a say in how our own lives are having a say in our own lives, how they develop, our personal development of our communities, professionally. I mean, so I think that's why I became an advocate. It kind of turned into advocacy in my mind.